everyone. My name is Eileen Smith, and I'm coming to you from the Institute for Simulation and Training at the University of Central Florida. Now, Amanda, remind me where Adams Middle School is.
Hillsborough County.
Wonderful. From one corner of the corridor to the other. I welcome you guys, and I hope you are staying dry, or as dry as you can today. It's an active day out there in the Gulf. So without further ado, let's just get started on seeing some things with the E2I Creative Studio. I'm starting you at our graphic mural, which really kind of sets the stage for what we like to do with folks. We like to engage their imagination. We like to always have a culture of high achievers. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And it's worth having a lot of fun while you do it. That's the kind of people we use around our team. And we play with creative partners. The world doesn't run on just a single person. And in our world, simulation doesn't get created by a single person. It's a team effort, and it takes people with a problem space and people with a technology. And then we work together. So moving on, we like to drive innovation. And sometimes that innovation is driven with high-end training for fire commanders. So what does it mean to arrive on a scene and be the commander of that fire? We help them train for that. We also work a lot with science museums, and you will see this actual experience in person. And intriguingly enough, this was planned before today, it is a hurricane simulation where one person makes a storm, one person makes a house, and then they hit each other. Interesting timing for that one. We have done things where we've looked at saying, what does it mean to be on the moon? How do we look at a lunar colony and how man might not only exist in that lunar colony, but thrive as a social animal? We need community around us as humans. What does it mean when the majority of our community is thousands of miles away and there's a lag and a delay even between communications by FaceTime? What does it mean to FaceTime with the moon? Haven't figured all those things out yet. Part of it starting is to give people places where they can start asking those questions. So research test beds, and that's what we create. We're going to move into other things that we have done. We work with nurses and physicians and people who work with folks who've had a stroke and need to understand how to move their body again. And so we look and say, how can technology help? How can we give a tool to both the patient and the doctor or nurse that can help the patient have better quality of life? Super important. Again, we want to have fun in our life. How do we use technology to help us achieve that? And here again are some views from one of our science exhibits. This is actually down in the Museum of Discovery and Science in Fort Lauderdale. And it looked at saying, could we give adolescents, and y'all in middle school are a perfect example of the population, the ability to understand why science is relevant in my life? And how do I understand, using science, what water's journey through the very bottom of South Florida, where the Everglades National Park is? What does that mean? And how do I understand how to keep that natural resource alive? This little piece of blue right here is Lake Okeechobee. And so Orlando and Hillsborough County are like up here under this map overlay. But from this portion down, the only way South Florida gets fresh water is from rain. So the water that falls is super important. Nothing flows down from the rest of the United States. What does it mean to understand that resource as an adolescent? Because y'all are going to be the adults of the future and the people actually working to make all of these types of amazing research and opportunities that we explore come to reality and be used by a lot of people. So that's in essence what it means to be a researcher at the E2I Creative Studio. Let's walk inside the lab, and we're actually going to see some screens of some of our interactives. Come on with me. We're going to start over here just for a moment because I have a friend of mine here. Now, Mr. Cal has passed on. He was a very older man when I met him, but this was a very important man in the space program, and I bet none of you have ever seen his face. He wasn't an astronaut. He very proudly says he was a blue-collar worker. The reality is this man was the top blue-collar worker on the launch pad when John Glenn blasted off in the late 60s on early space missions. And Cal's job, he was the launch commander. He pushed the button that sent the rockets and sent John Glenn into space. So if not for Cal, John Glenn never would have gotten off the launch pad. This is an idea of one of the people who's just a regular guy or a regular woman who has a super impact on science. That's really important for people to know, because every one of you can have a real impact on science, technology, education, and engineering and math. And through that, how we actually make society better for all of us, including eventually your children and grandchildren. So this researcher looks at saying, how do I take the beautiful things from the 1960s and actually recreate them inside a simulated environment? So Dr. Walters has done things where you can walk into a screen, use a computer screen and walk on the screen into the 1968, 67, 68 launchings that were going on at that time. The actual visuals are there, the size of the computers. I'm sure y'all have heard this already, but your phone has exponentially more power than the entire bank of computers that sent the astronauts into space. 256K of RAM, I believe, what was available then. That's it. Imagine having to design a complex thing like that with that type of computing power. It boggles the mind. But it's something really that can be achieved if people put their minds around solving difficult problems. So let's see how we help people begin to have confidence that they can solve those problems. I'm going to go here first because, and Amanda kind of set up wherever you can see the blue real well. This looks like a universe gone wild, but actually what it is an opportunity for youth to explore this idea of force and mass and how it impacts gravitational forces in the universe. So each one of these planets, which are the ones circling with the white vapor trails, are in our universe, and we've been able to make our own, if you'll notice that's moving there, and then I can make my own celestial body go into space. If I haven't put enough force and mass on that celestial body, then it becomes a moon and it gets trapped in the orbit of a larger planet. That was a very key thing we wanted people to be able to talk about. What does it mean to launch things into space? Satellites, colonies that may be revolving and orbiting around something, or actually starting to go into deep space where NASA engineers design workarounds using the planetary gravity of a certain planet to literally change the path of something that's going much further into the universe. And I use that as kind of a whipping boost. So we wanted people to be able to explore that. So I have a little piece of trivia that I want to pass on to you guys. And you guys are kind of old for this because the person who asked this question was a group of 5th graders. So the young guys are coming behind you. So you guys need to be thinking about that. However, it was a very good question because this group of 5th graders had managed to get approximately 200 little orbits going around this planet. So the tube was quite long. And when I walked up, they asked me this question. Could we generate artificial gravity inside that tube, since it's off Earth, and do experiments? This was 5th graders. I said to them what I would say to you if you said that to me. If you keep studying in math and science, I will guarantee you can do that. And the results will be amazing insight for the world. A lot of kids get motivated doing things like this. And here I'm talking to the teachers and to parents too. A lot of young folks, a lot of people, a lot of parents walk up to these things and start playing with them because it's something new. And we design things so that we entice you to play and then we keep you involved. Any of you who play video games, especially narrative-based ones, understand that idea of engagement and then sustained engagement. That's exactly what we do here. So let's keep going along here. I want to bring you to one of our prototypes right now. We actually haven't gotten this funded in a large grant yet. And Jeff, spin around and say hello to folks.
Hey, how's it going?
Jeff Alvarado is our production manager at the lab, so he oversees everything that actually gets accomplished.
Good way to put it.
There you go, there you go. And what Jeff is showing us today is an example of a thing we call Science Valley. And Science Valley has information I can get. I also will do first-person experiments. So he's going to walk over here, and he's going to use the sliders and look at moisture, sunlight, and temperature, and get the conditions right to grow corn. So we kind of know what the right ones are to pick, but you'll notice as we do that, the interface reacts to us. Very important that when a learner does something, an interface reacts. So he's got moisture and sunlight, that temperature is getting up there, and once it's in the right temperature, he gets the prize, which in this case is one of the crates he needs. A storm blew all the crates that he was expecting all over the island last night. So in order to do his DARPA experiment with a robot, he has to find all the robot parts. And in order to do that, he has to go around to different areas. Notice up here, he's got an inventory that is starting to populate as he goes to different experiments. In a short while, he'll have enough of those where he can actually put together a robot, and the robot competes against a virtual version of a Department of Defense robot that won last year's big competition. So it's a way to look and say, how do we play around serious topics? Right here, he's exploring now around the valley and seeing different things. I see another crate up there, so it'll be interesting. So different ways. People can explore the path they want to go on. Amanda, if you kind of show the bottom left corner, that's a picture-in-picture, so he can see where cool things might be that he might want to go to while he's going around the island. We also make things as shown here on the right, where we can have ways to take a picture of something or to enter text and send someone a message. And if you send people messages, every once in a while you get a return message from one of the virtual characters inside Science Valley, asking you a question or asking you to help them solve this problem they have. So it's a very intriguing prototype. As I say, it's something we're going after funding right now. And so if any of the teachers are intrigued by this particular prototype, get in touch with Amanda or Jenny and have them connect you with me, because we may be able to use some testing audiences. So I give that offer. All right, now we're going to come over and see something that wasn't meant to have exactly the tie-in it has today, but it's our hurricane game. So this is John Valderrama. John is one of our developers. So if you're getting something coded and you want something to function, you want John involved, because Eileen will never actually get it working for you. I'll like it, but I won't get it working. So we're going to try something right now. We're going to run through it twice, 2 different times, Amanda, so you can change your view. One person is building a house. One person is creating a storm and then exploring the way a storm changes after it's formed and before it hits landfall. It's only about a minute and a half. John has 38 seconds once we hit start. So let's get started. And we are off and running. His timer's down to 35 seconds. And the time is over. The hurricane is coming.
So are you add-ons there?
Yeah, so it gives me a timer here, so I have to like buy them before it kind of passes the line here. So I'm just trying to get supplies, and then we have to like put everything inside so it doesn't get blown away.
So very interesting for you all who are in Hillsborough. Any of you who have older neighbors or neighbors who might have been away when the storm came up real fast, did they put away their pool furniture? We're about to find out. Okay, so let's do it again. And John, so start over and then we'll spend a longer time on the exit screen next time. So now you're going to see this side, which is actually looking at how we learn a little bit more about how both hurricanes form and how they can change on their way to land. So in here, we're going to pick a time of year. And if you'll notice, do you see it on the iPad? They're getting darker. There's areas that are darker. Those are the normal spots where things hit Florida, because we're looking at South Florida. And we all know that September, October, that's about the middle. Here, let's be a Hurricane Michael. And we got to make, if I keep the water cool, storms won't form. So, but if I start heating it up, then the water starts to get turbulent. I start to see the possibility for storms to exist. And here we go. So now I'm finished building the storm. Have I ended? Oh no. Because what happens is storms can do three major things on their way to land. They can get faster or slower. They can get bigger or smaller. They can get less intense, which is destructive, or more intense. So as I increase size, it will tell me how much I'm doing. Now, I can't make them all 5 because that's what everybody wants to do, and that's not realistic. So I'm going to actually be a little devious, and John can hear me now, but he's already set up his house. But I'm going to make it very intense and not very fast. So I have a slow storm. It's kind of medium sized, but it's very intense. So it looks like, I don't know what John sent against me this time, but it looks like he put something in a rural environment. And the only thing left is the refrigerator, which for some reason is a bug in our game and it never blows away. So it's like a titanium filled refrigerator or something, but it stays there. But look, I hit him with a category 4. He picked a mobile home, and a gable roof was okay, and he put plain glass windows. So you set this up to blow away. And so different things. He couldn't buy a garage brace because they don't work on mobile homes. So that's one thing about the roof being protected. Plywood, the generator blew away because the whole house blew away. The gasoline blew away. The water blew away. He bought batteries, but they probably blew away. And the reality is that's what's left of his this particular virtual hurricane hitting a house. Now that's the biggest thing to realize, is this is a way to play in a safe environment where you don't actually have to blow away houses, and start to understand what it was. If he had built the same mobile home, put a hip roof on and put hurricane shutters, it might have come out different. We're not going to spend the time now to do another one, but that's where simulation helps. I try it again, I try it again, I change the parameters and try it again. Changing context. So let's go ahead, and at this point, we're going to move, I'm going to show you a little bit of our production studio. We're just going to walk through that, and then we're going to see a screen view of someone in a Vive, and then we're going to see a screenshot of someone in Google Earth in an Oculus Rift.
Ms. Castro's class, I can see there's lots of conversation happening, so we can definitely call on you first for questions.
So if we swing around here, you'll see a familiar face. This is Jeff in his normal environment of production manager. We have toys, and we also have a hole puncher for all of his printouts. So you see he's got that management. And he needs 3 monitors to handle all of the different things and actually still be able to do some work. So moving through, we have a very creative space here. So this must be one of our artists.
Hello.
This is Trevor. What are you working on right now, Trevor?
I'm working on some mechanical parts. I'm like making the meshes a little bit more easy.
Can you swing that, or is it bad? Okay, so when we make things, we have to do it in detail if we want them to work inside the simulation. So he is looking at saying, how do we create pieces that go together in a huge bit of machinery and make something work? And when someone pulls a button, pushes a button or pulls a trigger. Thank you, sir. Yep. Moving further down, we're going to come back to Google Earth and the Oculus Rift here. This is John. Remember John? Here's his programmer space. So you will find no hole punch machines right here. You notice there aren't a lot of printouts right here, but there is a HoloLens sitting here. So our developers actually get all the best, coolest things to play with, which they need to understand how to design well for them so they can be tools. But finishing out our trip through this particular team space, this is Jason, who gets the award for the most screens, 4 screens, and the screen could have the most creative orientation because he needs 2 of them very tall. But again, that's looking at saying, how do I customize my workspace? If I'm looking at code and I need to see a lot of code, I might not want to have it in 6-point if I want to keep working on it for hours at a time and days at a time. So how do I make it easy for me? How do I make it easy for me to do the creative job that then makes the end product easy and impactful for everyone else? What's the biggest challenge you're working on right now? In layman's speak.
Configuring our own networking.
Okay, so what is it to control all of your own networking as opposed to having plugins or things that come from a third party that could go away at some point in time, and then all of a sudden your great connection with your client to do wonderful technology has a gap in it or it's missing. So that's what we constantly have to do, and our developers have to work on when we use third-party things, outside plugins, outside connecting software. So when we can do our own and control the whole pipeline, it's a lot more secure. So that's what Jason's working on right now. Was that a good,
yep,
interpretation? Okay, I'm very dangerous now. We should leave this room. Always have to have, don't show that. Always have to have a whiteboard so you can write things that you then intend to totally get rid of right away because they're no good. So you can write the better things next to them. So we're going to spit out right here into our larger lab. And we come around Mr. Jeff for the 3rd time. Okay, so as you just look around this lab, this is our large space. So we have some physical things. We have a very large screen here that's actually used for the firefighter training that I mentioned down at our wall mural. We have a small kitchen area hidden because it's very dirty to buy a piece of machinery. It's really a leftover from a conference that's actually foam, but it was done by a theme park developer for us so that we had a great, very theatrical screen presentation if you wanted that. of more use all the time is this area of our lab. You'll see there are cameras which are mounted in the grid up here. These can be motion capture cameras for production work, or they could be actual cameras that were dynamically capturing motion inside an AR experience, an augmented reality experience. And then we have observer stations and stations that can look at both design and networking with our external partners. We use a lot of Adobe Connect and Skype and different things online to erase the geographic differences, kind of like we're doing right now. We use technology to make all of our partners play in the same space with us. Jeff has a HTC Vive on. It's one of the immersive virtual reality experiences. I'll say a show of hands. Amanda will be able to tell me. Of the classes that we see on the screen, how many people have ever had any sort of immersive VR on, either Oculus or Vive or any of the others, HoloLens, anything?
Only one?
Okay, so.
Two?
All right, good. You will have more opportunities because I will tell you right now, there's a lot of entertainment people who are starting to look at putting them in arcades and doing their own arcades that are large scale. So there's more to come on that. What Jeff is showing us here, and I'm gonna, Amanda, come on over here, and Jeff, Amanda's to 3 o'clock on you, so just don't hit her. But one of the things to remember is if someone is in VR and you are near them, they cannot see you. So if they smack you in the head, it's your fault. Thank you. So just go ahead and go around, and Amanda, get where you want to be so that you see that screen real well and you see all of it. This looks like a really cool game of just going around and visiting this fanciful world. As you watch Jeff go around, let me tell you a little bit about what this world actually is. The world is actually coming from the creative mind of a 24-year-old man who had a stroke. And Brandon was physically a very big boy, and his one arm was totally frozen, and he could barely speak. He was very sad all the time. He lived with his mom, and he was a gamer before he had his stroke. So he's working with one of the clinics at UCF, and they said, could you help us put him in some environment where we might help him calm down a little bit and see if he helps. So we put him in a Vive. We started him at the beginning of the semester with a green field and sunlight. And every week he came in and worked with 2 of our interns to create his world, which ended up being called Zoltan's World. And that's what it ended up looking like by the end of the semester. It could not have been further away from the sunny green and blue skies of the beginning. But I'll tell you what, this boy who could not speak to me in a complete sentence when I met him at the end of the semester, when he put the Vive on and he could see nobody else, and by the way, no one talked while he was here except his 2 students that he was familiar with their voices. He could all of a sudden talk in complete sentences. Couldn't move his arm yet, so we made it so he only had to have one controller. And he was walking around talking and going, this is amazing. Zoltan would be so happy that I made a world. Those were actual words he said. His mom was in the corner, almost crying, because she saw happiness coming from her son, and she hadn't seen that in well over 6 months. He transcended his disability because somehow his brain was able to relax when he stopped seeing other people and the pity in their eyes and knowing that they pitied him and were sorry for him. When he couldn't see that anymore, he could relax, he could dive into a world he loved, and he could create something like this, which I would play a game based on this world. It's a really intriguing world. And there's total layers inside the caves that we don't even have time to show you guys today. But it's actually an amazing thing. So we're gonna stop there, although we do see his version of Stonehenge, which was made. Stonehenge is a British monument of stones, very large stones. And people have done strange ones in the United States, and Brandon wanted to make his, which was done with old Volkswagen buses. So, Volkswagen van. So we thank him for that. The whole idea was to get him to talk, and talk he did, and relax he did. So what does that mean for the brain? Okay, Jeff, thank you very much. And we are going to actually move back into 1:30 because I want you guys to see Oculus Rift. John,
Yes.
you could go anywhere with Oculus Rift and you went to our parking lot.
I don't know. We go to school?
Oh, well, we can see the University of Central Florida as it is shown here. It's a huge university. My goodness, I forgot how big it had actually grown. The center of the university is right where the center of the circle is, and then the roads at UCF go in circles around the student union. So this is a way to take us, and John just jumped to Street View. So y'all have probably seen Google Earth on a screen. Imagine standing here, and as you're going around, you're actually standing in the UCF campus. When I went on this for the first time, one of the places I went, because I loved the movie when I saw it in IMAX, was Everest. And I went to the top of Mount Everest, and it'll get you to the top there, and you are standing in utter isolation. And as far as you can see in every direction, I even teleported like in a certain direction for what I thought was a long time. All I could see was other mountain peaks. There was no sign of civilization whatsoever. No wires, no nothing, no roads. It was no animals, no trees. You're above the tree line. It was startling, and it was so cool. It was really, really intriguing to do. So John has on, show John's face, Amanda. He has on an Oculus Rift, which is different from what Jeff had on. He had an HTC Vive, and the controllers are a little different. They have different points and different abilities a little bit. So we like to play and say which controller is the better. None is the best, and it's always changing. So is there any weird, he is not at UCF anymore.
I'm in Germany now.
Go to Germany, because I like the fact that you were seeing some snow. So here he is now on a peak in Germany where we're going to get up.
So they're in like the mountains, I believe.
Move slowly yeah, great, thank you. So again, we're seeing it on a screen, but John is seeing it in 360. That's all he sees, and he's in the middle. And I am not dressed good enough for that. Okay, so we are going to probably have some time for questions. I think we probably have about.
Do you want to take this and I can go do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to stay in here for questions. Are you going upstairs to run mutes?
Yeah.
Okay, great. What we're going to do is Miss Amanda's going to get just upstairs right above where we are to our office, and she's going to unmute microphones and things like this. And I am actually going to stay in here in the production studio and answer questions. So I could answer questions, or you could ask questions of Jeff or an artist or a developer. So think about what you'd like to ask. And and if there's no way for them to hear a question. So I'll fill the time till Miss Amanda gets upstairs. In telling you this, what you've seen today is an example of some of the things that we're working on now and some of the more impactful things that we've done in the past. We started with, what was the problem space that someone wants people to overcome, and how can technology help that? So I'll give you the example of the hurricanes. Again, people in the Panhandle who have only moved there in the last 10 years are learning this right now. what do I need to do and what do I need to do at what time so that I can get everything prepared before a storm hits. So what I choose to put on a screen as a developer, as a designer, is very, very important to the success of a simulation. And I think Amanda may be up there.
Yeah, I think I heard her.
Yep, I'm here.
So, Ms. Castro, Ms. Gherkin, if somebody wants to raise their hand, we'll go to you guys first. Any questions? All right. So those of you who are in attendee mode, if you have a question, you can either raise your hand, which is over on the side, or you can type in the question and I'll read it out loud for you. Oh, I see a question. I'm sending you a unmute request. Ms. Gherkin, I think it was your class.
Okay. Okay, Nikita's gonna ask a question. Okay, go ahead.
On the screen in the back, like where you can see like the Google Maps and things, can you look at our school?
Can you repeat it one more time? Louder?
The world map in the back for the like virtual thing. Can you look at our school on there?
Can you look at their school?
I can, I'm seeing the classroom.
Oh, it's this one.
They want to look at Adams Middle School. Yes, we'll see how quickly John can get us there. He probably has to go to a search mode.
Good question.
Adams Middle School. Is it Tampa?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tampa.
Oh, there it is.
Do you have a, does that look like, does that look
your
familiar?
It does, because there's our pool right there.
Oh. Do you guys have questions? What are the questions?
It's not a
Awesome.
live image, so you can't run outside and wave at us.
Your school? You can slow down. There you go.
To the left?
Yeah.
If you look to the right, our school's right there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
There you go.
Awesome.
It won't let us go in because obviously it doesn't want anybody to be able to go up there and you know, sort of go inside the school grounds for safety reasons, but we can get to the street.
Did you want to ask that question? Can you see people?
No.
Do you want to?
Okay, we had a question. We had another question, which was, can you see people doing like in real life? Is this real life right now?
No.
This is not real time. This was captured by a Google camera that would have gone through, or it would have captured by satellite. So like that girl, at the point in time this picture was taken, that girl was walking there. Or that boy looking at their phone. Probably the most popular image captured is people walking around looking at their phone. So what's interesting is you should look at your house sometimes, see if you were outside in front of your house when the Google camera went by. One of our other lab directors, he and his wife were walking to their son's house, and the Google camera came around. So for about 5 years, Charlie and Carol were in the Google photo of that particular block because they happened to be walking when the photo was taken.
There's another question. My kids want to know how often the pictures are updated.
Ooh, anybody here know how often the camera updates? I can tell you this, it updates within the last 5 years. The reason I know that is because it has half of the renovation my husband and I did to our landscaping in 2013. So for ours, now some things it may update more frequently. They probably have a priority sort of order, and neighborhoods are probably not the priority to do so. For a while there, it was about 5 or 6 years based on what we could see of our house.
Awesome. Ms. Castro, does your class have another question? You can also unmute your mic if you'd like to ask it in person. Okay, no more question. Ms. Gherkin, do you have a question? Oh, I see a question.
What other questions do you guys have? It can be about the hurricanes too.
Mute your mic and then we'll be able to hear your student's question.
There was one in
Castro's. Hear you? Oh, no, we still don't hear you.
I think Miss Castro's class wanted to ask a question.
So under audio, make sure that your webcam microphone is selected. You turned it back off. So the button should be green. There you go. Now try to ask.
Too bad.
I'm so sorry. We can see you talking, but we can't hear you. If you chat in the question, I'll make sure to read it out loud. So do you see the chat function right below?
I think they unmuted it.
How old do you have to be to work there?
Okay, so we have our youngest unpaid intern was 16 years old. We generally have people who are either rising freshmen into UCF or that are in UCF right now, but we have also worked with the community colleges, and we have a lot of interest in working with upper level high school. It helps us if the students can get themselves to us. So the transportation, we don't want to have parents that have to be involved. But even when we've had game jams, which have an 18 and up sort of minimum age, we have opened them up at times to an adult child duo so that one of the pair is over 18. So there's lots of ways to get involved. There's also ways to just send us emails and ask if you can be a tester for something and see if we say yes.
They asked, what is an internship and where are we located?
Okay, we are in Orlando, Florida. So we are about 90 miles away from Tampa, up by 4. And what was the other part of the question?
What's an internship?
Oh, an internship is someone who is working with us to gain knowledge. So it's usually a student, as opposed to the folks you met here today who are not students. They either hold a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in modeling and simulation or digital media. So they have graduated. But if we have students who are with us, usually undergraduate, and they do an internship, which is a special category, which means that they're here to learn as well as to work. So one of the things with an internship is they could be looking at doing it just for class credit, excuse me, or they could be looking at just doing it for experience. It matters on your resume when you get out of college what you've done that wasn't a class project. So think about that even now. When you guys are thinking about community service and thinking about things that you might be able to do for community service credits and things in high school, or something that might qualify you for some high school credits while you're in middle school, think about how you might want to participate in those. Excuse me. And then when you're done, how you want to talk about those online. Y'all are at a lower level, but it's not too early to think about the fact that people are going to look you up online before they ever invite you to an interview for a job. That's just what happens nowadays. So for all of our students and all of our staff, they have to have an online portfolio where it shows, here's what I know, here's who I am, here's what I do, and here's how I would be really wonderful for your team. It's never too early to start that education and start that thinking about how you want to fit into the world. Do you like to design things? Do you like to take others' designs and make them a reality? Do you like to look at something and say, let me help you test that with people so I can tell you how to make it better? Or any of things like that. People who are into dance. Dancing is one of the best ways to understand this idea of human and robotic movement. and how we might be working together with very large machines. We need people who understand motions, forces in motion. Those are physicists. They're also dancers and choreographers. So there's those linkages that are really important.
Awesome, and now we have a question from Miss Kinsey. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute your classroom. I see your raised hand. And you should be unmuted. Awesome, we can hear your class. Can you hear us?
Okay. So I am watching you. I'm giving student points as you go. But do you guys know what's happening back here? What is this? Google Maps. So the first question, if you look on your paper, the first question is, what is their web, or sorry, it says company name. Now, we don't know for sure, but what do you think the company name is? She probably works for Google Maps, right? Because she's showing Google Maps and she's answering questions. She showed our school on Google Maps. So that's what we call inferring. We're taking information that we see.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay, can you say again where you work and where we're all located?
I work at the Institute for Simulation and Training, which is at the University of Central Florida, and UCF is in Orlando, which is up I 4 from Tampa.
Awesome. So
now I have one other thing I can show on the way out if our questions end early and we have a bit of time.
Okay, awesome. Is there any other questions from Ms. Castro, Ms. Gerken, or any other classrooms? You can once again chat them into the question box, or you can use the little hand raising symbol and we'll make sure to unmute you. All right. Looks like there's no more questions.
Okay, so let's go outside and look at one last simulation. Thank you, John. One of the things that simulation does really good to help us explore are principles that are really hard to do in real life. One is messing with time. One is messing with space, so a scale of something. And one is messing with place, where I actually am. And so let me give you an example of where I don't need simulation. If I want to tell you all what the difference between the interaction between oil and water is, I don't need a simulation. I need a clear beaker of water, and I need a vial of oil, and I need to pour one into the other, swirl it around, and talk about it. I can see the interaction. I can see it happening right now in 24/7 space and in real time. So that in essence is a simulation, but it's a physical face-to-face simulation. I want to show you something here that's looking at an interesting and a difficult topic. If I want to explore the topic of evolution, I can't sit and watch it happen. I won't live that long. Unless I'm maybe watching fruit flies, who it's really hard to see evolution. So how could I do it? So we did something with our College of Education to say, how could we let people understand a little bit about simulation? So as this simulation starts, I have a circle species. It lives in the water. It goes around, it eats the blue food in the water. And if you watch one of these, it actually goes through a life cycle of being, find a little one, of being little, and then it grows up. And if you watch it, eventually it will disappear as though it was born and it ate and eventually it died. So what happens when I change fundamentally where their food is? Well, if I change it too fast, they're gonna die. But what if I don't? What if I say I want to systematically see what happens when I give 2 forms of food instead of 1? And here's the first instantiation. Half of that circle is blue for the water and half is yellow for the sandy area. And now as the gene mutates and variations start happening, now all of a sudden, look what I have. I have a population that's coming that could eat either one. And I have some who now are only eating things from the beach. So, okay, I have right now a very diverse. Could I get it even more diverse? Now, in our small thing, I can't. My developers say they've seen one with 3 colors, but they can't recreate it for me, so I don't believe it. So now I've moved everything away from the water. There is no more. I have a couple of holdouts that were still only water, but now I start having mostly soil. But I should start seeing a few that end up being yellow and green. Interestingly enough, the whole idea of dominance, here I go. There's my first one that can eat grass, forest, or beach environment. So now I'm showing where if this was a world over time, as food possibilities moved from the water and over time slowly changed, organisms changed with it because they had the ability to adapt and evolve. So now I'm going to move it so I'm all the way over at green. So now the only place new plants are coming up is within that green forested area. Notice there's no one. I still have a few blues because there are dominant genes that stay in variations for a while. But I'm slowly but surely really populated over there. I'm going to let it go a little bit more because we've got really nice dominant blue genes there. And I want to get a good extinction, which that's what I'm working for. I'm going to let go a little bit more, and then I'm going to go, what if the change happened really super fast? Boom. All of it is over here. There's nothing else. Oh, now, some of them are evolving, but look at the population. It just went really far down. It plummeted because everything that could only eat there is gone. It's a small way to look at an example of a really hard topic. And what's really fun is, this is done very much like a cartoon style. But I watched a senior scientist at UCF stand here with grad students and talk about cell manipulation and gene splicing for a half an hour, and they kept going back and forth using this as their way to do it, and talking about what do we do and how does this drive. Literally, it is driving populations. Now, here we go. Notice how little the population got all of a sudden. So that fluxing in population when something can't adapt. This is just an example of talking about a really hard topic and giving an example that people can then discuss and find other ways, other organisms, other species that are examples of evolution. I think we are probably close to the end of our time.
And they are ready for us upstairs, so
yeah,
great. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. Enjoyed showing you around the EDY Creative Studio. And you're in 7th grade now, so your teacher can get in touch with Miss Amanda or Miss Jenny if you all want to participate maybe in some testing down the road. And otherwise, maybe we'll see you when you get into high school.
Awesome. So
enjoy your next lab.
Should I just keep it going?
Yeah. So we're going to head up to the 3D lab upstairs. We're going to mute our mic because it gets really loud. So we'll see you in just a second.
Hey guys. I'm Fluvio, and this is Product Development at 3D Print Lab. Jack will be joining us shortly, and I want to show you guys a little bit about 3D printing and what we do in this lab. I know some of you have some experience. That's Jack, right? I know some of you have experience with 3D printing, but I don't know if you've seen all the printers that there are. We have a really good assortment of printers and technologies, so we're really excited to show you that. If you want to get close to this table, you guys can see all the different things that we print in this lab and all the different technologies. So most of you probably know about fused deposition printers, which do like one color type of models. They have them all different size and shape. Like this one is obviously a printer. We have to print this in two parts, but you know, a big printer can print really big buildings. We could also do hands and anatomy parts. This is actually Jack's hand. Look, this is Jack's hand right there. And then, so that's sort of like a fused deposition. We'll talk about that a lot. This is another anatomy model that was printed one color, one material. These two buildings, this is obviously out of our imagination, but this is the building that we're in right now. This is Partnership 3, and this was a very nice building in Cocoa Beach on the coast that was demolished years ago. But so we do that based on scanning, so data from people that scan buildings, but we also have printers that can do multiple colors. So everything that you see here that has multiple colors was also 3D printed. And not only can we do multiple colors, actually let's do a little close up. So if you have an anatomy model, you could actually segment out or outline each part of the anatomy that you're interested in and assign a different color to it. So as I wrote this round, this was actually based out of an MRI or CT scan of a person. Same for all these models, by the way. So I showed you this kidney model before. So this is what that kidney model looks like after we put texture and color to it. So it looks a lot more realistic.
And that's printed in one.
And then, yeah, this is a printer that does everything in one job, no post-processing, just one piece. All the anatomy models that you see here are from actual patients. So we work with hospitals to print these models so that we can help physicians do surgery for complicated cases like this scoliosis and multiple fused vertebrae. So this is with a hospital here near the university. We can also print flexible materials. So looking at that same spine model, a real spine can actually twist and bend a little bit. So we can print in the same printer, one build, we can print flexible and hard materials. So we have a couple good examples of that. I'll go around and bring them to you. So we have the same material, the same printer, a rigid one that someone broke. I just noticed, and a flexible material.
What is that?
This is 3D printed on that system over there.
For what? What actually?
Oh, it's just the shape for testing.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like a piece of the spine or.
No. Let me show you some cool parts that we just got actually. So new areas of application for 3D printing. This was 3D printed. This is a card part. I'll show you this actually. I think that would look really cool. This actually works. If you shine any light behind it, it actually looks like car lights. That's what it's meant to be used for. So that was printed in one of the printers that we're going to show you. And then also this. This is a shifter for a car. And look at this. This is supposed to look like leather, feel like leather, but it isn't leather. It's just a photopolymer plastic. That is what that machine prints over there. All right. So that printer is capable of doing this many colors, which is a ton, all of the colors, and color gradients. So we can actually, not only can we do textures like in this model, but we can scan someone, because we have a 3D scanner, and get the actual color of that person's skin and create and recreate a 3D version with the color of that person's limb, in this case the leg, and 3D print this model. This is obviously scaled down. And then we can fuse that with the MRI and CT data, which is the internal imaging, and then we can fuse them together for a single print of internal and external parts of the anatomy. All right, so should we start with the fused deposition ones? I kind of want to show them the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so here's the fancy printer that does all the colors and shape. And it's a really good example of it. in there. You see a
It's a,
face. So we scanned this person's face. We made some modifications, so this is not real. This is put on, but everything was printed in this printer as sort of like a very thin mask. And that glossy finish can be done on the printer, or we can actually get a matte finish, so not so glossy. For me, so they can hear better. So yeah, so this is our sort of like most technologically advanced system. It can do all colors, can do flexible and rigid materials, and full color, like I said. So we can almost do anything with this printer. So let me show you some of the simpler printers and some of like the hobbyist systems, or the systems that either you have access to in your high school, or you know of, or you've seen. These are fused to position. So we go back to, you know, one color, one material printing, and you can see them working right now. They're working layer by layer. So these are actually, these model parts that I'm printing are this size. This is the actual size of the model. This is the actual final size of the print. So it's going to start at that layer, and it's going to keep going and going and going and going until it gets there. Now, I don't know, you guys probably know a little bit of how 3D printing works, and this is how, especially how this technology works, is almost like a glue gun, right? So you're actually basically passing this filament material, which is the plastic that comes in a wire like this, and then this is called a hot end. This is a very hot piece of metal, right? You heat it up so that you can melt this plastic right here, and then as soon as it heats the surface, as soon as it touches the surface, it cools down and solidifies, and then you repeat that process layer by layer until you get to that final part.
we have a question.
Yes.
What is the material made of?
This is actually polylactic acid, so that's the actual name of the plastic that you're getting. So it's common plastics. So ABS, PLA are plastics that you see everywhere in your house. So that's really what these are using, just very, very common plastics. There are very specialized plastics. And then the color printers, they do different type of plastic. It's a photopolymer. So you actually do droplets, and then you cure them using UV light. But this is, you know, like 90% of the printers out there in the world are fused to precision. And they actually use just everyday plastics that you see everywhere. In fact, there's people grinding plastic bottles so that they can make this material in print.
Yes. I have another question. Who makes the printers?
Many companies. So the leader, there's two big US-based printing companies, Stratasys and 3D Systems. We have a lot of the Stratasys systems, as you can see. So that PolyJet system over there, the one with the color, and these two systems over here, and that system over there, which I'll talk about in a minute. Those are all made by Stratasys. That's our sort of like company we work the most with. But these are, you know, high-end systems. You're talking like, you know, a couple $1,000. The universities usually buy these, and they're very reliable. It's basically like buying a car on a lease. That's how I think. You buy your nice car on a lease, and if something happens to it, they come and fix it. Now, these are sort of the hobbyist printers, right? So who makes them? A ton of people make them. And for instance, these we bought on Amazon. So these printers costed us like $600. So just to give you a perspective, you can have systems that cost like $50,000, and you have systems that you can buy on Amazon and get them tomorrow for $500, $600. And that's what we have here. And these are very like tunable, right? So if you are a hobbyist and you like to modify them, you can. In fact, right now we have this computer, a Raspberry Pi. We actually have it controlling it over the network so that I can sit at my desk or over at home and actually watch the printer go. That's why we have a webcam here. And we've actually done experiments where we live stream the print. So you can like go to a YouTube channel and see the print. And you can also modify the print, like change the temperature, etc. So
there is a question on what kind of materials do you.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, I got that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. So you have a system like this. Let me talk about the fact that a system like this is very manual, right? So once you get a system like this, once this print is finished, I have to come in and take the part out, clear the platform, get ready for the next print. There are systems that are fully automated, and that's what this is. So I don't have anything running on the system right now because we are on material for this, but this system is a vending machine. So if you come to the front, you'll be able to see there's 3 stacks. And the whole idea of this system is that you can have a wall of these machines, just like in the picture. You can have a wall of like 27 of these systems, and they're all cloud-based. So you log into a website, you set a part in, and it basically, the cloud application searches to see what printer is available, it queues the print starts, and then when it's finished, this actually spits out the print and falls into this bucket. So you don't have to do any manual work. You come into the office, the 3D print shop, and you give them your receipt per se, and then you can pick up your part and go.
They have another question.
Yes.
How much does this 3D printer and the one that made the mask cost?
So the one that made the mask costs like close to $500,000. So it's definitely not. And over in the next couple of years, you'll see that technology come down in price. But right now, that's definitely expensive. This system, we actually got it as a beta system. So we were the second university in the US to actually have one of these systems installed as a beta tester. This, I don't think, has an actual price point yet, because I don't think it's out on the market, but they're expecting it to be about $60,000 because it's 3 printers of about $10,000, $15,000 plus the software that comes with it. Now, again, these are systems that you wouldn't buy for your house. Okay, these are company, institution level, industry level. They're gonna buy this system. Hobbyist systems are like the 600, 400, very accessible. In fact, yeah, I own 2 of these. So, and let's see, let me show you. Sorry, I'm just like this big lab. All right, let's go to this end. So one thing you can do with 3D prints, sorry for the mess behind me. One of the things that you can do is, this is the same model that I showed you earlier in white. So plastic, you can get in many, many different colors. You can also get flexibles, of course, like I showed you. But one thing you can do is paint them. So one thing we do is we usually get pale colors like white, gray, and if we want to do some finishing, like this was supposed to look like a very rusty gate valve for some piping, then we just paint it. You can see the original color here in the bottom, and we just spray painting this, and we're done. There's actually materials that have like a paper type of finish that are supposed to absorb paint a lot better. So that's something else cool about 3D printing. This is another printer here. So we've been trying to, back to the question of like how much are printers. This is a system that I have at home. This is $300, $350. This is a really good system. It gives really high quality prints for that price point. I mean, it's actually pretty amazing what it can do. So
what kind of system is this?
This is called the CETUS, CETUS 3D. And then, it's, again, something you can get on Amazon. And the beauty of these systems is that they're ready to go. You have to be a little hands-on, right? So these systems don't just, you don't talk to them like Alexa, print something. That don't work like that. But you got to be a little hands-on. But for all the printers that are hands-on, this is definitely a little less a little more hands-off. It does all of the work by itself. And we get these systems so that every student in our group has one or has one accessible. So a lot of what we do in this lab is whenever someone's working on a part or a design, they have a printer available that they can just like throw their part in, get it printed, test it, and then redesign it. Yes.
Can you make anything with the printers?
Like as in, can I ask that? Or,
yeah. Can you clarify your question?
Ms. Gerken, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you so that way you can actually ask your question more.
Yep. Perfect.
So there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, go. He's gonna ask you.
Can y'all make like shoes and phones? Can a printer make shoes and
I
phones?
can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, go ahead. Ask again.
Can the printer make like shoes and phones?
Like phones, cell phones?
Oh,
Yeah.
like with electronics? With electronics and everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so there are printers that are working on actually using conductive filament, conductive material, so that you can have a blend of a functional piece that actually has, in fact, we actually have one material that is supposed to be conductive, but they're not really good. So I would say not yet. That would be the answer to that question, because soon enough you'll see printers that actually lay out paths within the print. There are very complex systems that mix plastic with silver paste, which silver is being used to make sort of like circuit boards. And you know, obviously you can make a printer that does 4 different things, but it doesn't become a printer. So there are companies that do those, make those systems that are sort of like a hybrid system between a 3D printer and also laid out circuits. But soon enough, you'll see printers like this being able to use materials that do act as wires, and then you can just place your components in and have conductivity. But right now, they're not very reliable.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. All right. So, but I thought you were asking, what else can you do with your printer? So let me show you something cool. So when the printers don't work anymore, or they're a little outdated, we actually take them apart completely, and we use every single piece for other applications. So the nice thing about printer that I like to consider is that you get a robot. I mean, you're basically buying if you buy something cheap, you buy a $400, $500 robot. And then if it breaks down, if you're done with it, if you want to play around, every printer comes with at least 3 motors. At least 3. I mean, some of them come with 4 or 5 motors. So now you can start building a car, several things. So a lot of the printers that we have that we don't use anymore, we actually take apart completely like this one, and we make it into other things. Like we actually trick them into doing something for us. Like in this case, over here, we're using this printer to actually hold a surgical tool and recreate some motion so that we can track that motion in space. So it may be a little like too narrow, like that example, but the idea here is that if you don't want to use it as a printer, now you have an XYZ stage that you can control. So you can send commands over the network and say, hey, do this, do that, and it'll do it for you, in addition to being able to add any other tool that you want here and just operate.
How long, they have a question, how long does it take for the print to come out?
Depends on the print, depends on the size. Let me show you some examples. So it depends, it depends on the size of the print and the print technology that you're using. So something like this is printed in FDM. By the way, let me show you this, and I didn't talk about support materials, so I'll talk about that. So something like this was printed in one go, and it was printed flat. So depending on the orientation, since it works on layers, if you have something very tall, it's gonna take longer. If you have something flat on the ground, then it's gonna take. This probably took a couple hours, maybe an hour or 2. And then that is the FDM system, the one that lays out the path, the one I showed you over there. Something like that system, the PolyJet one that printed the face and all that, that actually works by laying out droplets, and then it comes around and cures them. So it's more like a 2D printer per se. So it's actually pretty fast. So in 1 hour print that it took me to do this, you could actually do a lot of these models, because every layer is just one pass. So it's actually a pretty efficient way of building. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is support material. So if you think about it, this piece with moving parts, you can't really, first of all, you can't manufacture it any other way. So 3D printing allows you to make these by putting support material. Support material is material that you can remove. So if you think about it, imagine you're printing sort of like an arch, right? And you're going up on the columns, and then you're trying to fuse the arch. At some point, depending on how you design it, some of that may fall just because of gravity. So they created this thing called support material that essentially supports that arch or supports those structures that you're then going to remove in order to get mobility or functionality. And this has a lot of support material to let these pieces slide open and close. So a lot of those systems, they're very expensive because they come with a support material that is dissolvable. In other words, you can actually, after you're done printing, you can put that in a bath, run the bath for a couple hours, and it will take out all the material to get this nice, really nice finish. On the cheap printers, the support material is essentially the same material, but it's made very thin, so you can remove it with your hand, and it's actually not that bad. A lot of those printers that I showed you, that are really cheap, do a really amazing job at putting support material. So I just ended up taking the support with my hands, and I'm totally fine with it. No tears.
What has been the most difficult item to make?
It's a really good question. Well, I would say, okay, so every anatomy model is going to be the hardest. Every anatomy, easy. Something like this, okay? So this is a conjoined twin model. So one of the things that you have to be mindful is that this comes from, if you guys have ever seen X-rays, MRIs, or CT, right? You got to think of them as, let's actually use this. This is more complicated. So you get a stack of images. So you're actually starting from images that don't represent anything in 3D. So you have to go through every image and outline exactly what is it that you want to reconstruct. Because if you think about a human body, right? A human body is not just bones. It's muscle, you got your organs, you got other soft tissue, skin. So you got to go layer by layer and identifying what is that you want. So in this case, we wanted just bones, right? So you have to go layer by layer and identify what's bone, what isn't bone, and then go up a layer and do that. Now, there are programs that do that sort of automatically, but you have to do a lot of cleanup. So we actually have people specialized to do that type of work. That is not me. But I'll tell you that it definitely takes a lot of work, especially these medical models. You also need doctors to approve of those segmentations because obviously this is going to be used in some way, shape, or form to help the surgery. So, you know, you got to go back and forth with the decisions for them to say, yes, what you created is actually accurate to the images, the MRI, the CT, and all that type of thing. So those are the hardest models, I would say.
They wanted to know more about this model. What is it and how did you use it?
This hasn't been used.
Okay.
So I can't actually give all details on it. All I can tell you about this is that what they're doing is they're exploring the possibility of doing this surgery. So they're using this resource of 3D printing this model so that they know how they're going to go about the surgery. So in a lot of these cases, right, you may have arteries and veins that are fused. So using a 3D model, you can actually investigate. In fact, let's actually put this in front of the light. Get a light source so you can see. Yeah, you can see a little clearer there, maybe.
They're conjoined twins.
Right, these are conjoined twins. So they share a lot of organs and arteries and veins. So the idea of this model is that they can actually see through and say, okay, what are the organs, what are the features that we're going to need to split in surgery and how are we going to do it? And that's why they use these models. So I don't know a lot of the details about this because this hasn't happened yet, but I know they use these as reference. Like a good example is this was actually done at Nemours Children's Hospital down in Lake Nona. Is this patient had a tumor right here. So when you look at images, you don't see where this organ sort of like infiltrates, right? But if you do a 3D model, then you know that the tumor that they're trying to look at is actually protruding in different chambers of the skull. So you have a better idea, like for instance here in the occipital compartment, and then obviously taking a lot of that maxillary bones. And so on a surgery like this, if you have this model, then the main doctor can say, the main physician, if I may, he says, okay, I actually need experts, maxillofacial experts, maybe eye, someone in the brain, and then, you know, these surgeries take a lot of physicians. So this model allows you to better estimate who's going to be needed for the surgery, et cetera, and how much time it's going to take.
You have time. You have a good amount of time.
All right.
10 minutes.
Okay. But you know, other models that are hard to make I mean, that's hard because of what it takes. I think, you know, like the valve that I was showing you this. Sometimes a model like this is hard because you start off from a model that someone made once, and then you try to make it, you have to change it and modify it so that it does what you want to do. Like, for instance, we wanted to put sensors in this. So in order to put sensors in here, we had to like modify the entire internal structures and the external structures. You also have to modify it to print. So you got to think about it this way. Whenever you're making whenever you're 3D printing something, the best way of designing something to be 3D printable is a design that requires very little support. So a lot of these features and curves and angles, they're actually not made to look funny or to just look nice, but they're actually made so that you can build this completely with very minimal support structures so that your cleanup time at the end is very low. So that takes a lot of time. So you have to like weigh in, am I gonna waste more time cleaning the support or actually designing the part? So this is a very good example of something hard to, I mean, something that has taken time, not super hard.
I have a question. What is something that you like best and least about your job?
I don't have any complaints about my job. I really like everything. I really like playing with the printers, and I think fusing printing with other electronics, which I can show you a little bit about in the other room if we have time.
Yeah.
It's an exciting field for anyone that wants to get in and jump on board. Very exciting. You can start early, and a lot of this stuff that I know about 3D printing, you can learn now. You don't have to wait.
The next question is, what's the coolest thing you've ever made? Why did you make it, and who was it for?
The coolest thing I've ever made is in another room, and it's so actually, see if I have an example. Actually, let me show you some pieces here. I don't know if this will. These are 3D printed stethoscopes. So you guys know a stethoscope because you've all been to the doctor, right? But what if I could tell you that I can print stethoscope pieces and actually have them work? So this piece, you can just plug it in here. Like a normal stethoscope, you can actually listen to your heart sounds. I can't play it for you, but you know what? One of the things is this cheap stethoscope is very uncomfortable up here. These pieces really hurt a lot. So you can 3D print something flexible, like an earbud for your headphones. And you can just put it right here. It snaps right there. That's it. You have what? Squeeze it. This is hard and rigid, but you can wear this now. And it's a lot more comfortable than a normal stethoscope. So that would be one of the coolest things I've made. And we're making it so that, you know, this may reduce costs on how to make some of these instruments, allow us to make disposable versions of them, right? So, you know, a lot of medical instruments have to be cleaned constantly after being used, and this could actually get rid of that. Right? So I think that's one of the coolest things I've made.
Did you want to show the?
Oh yeah, let me show you something cool. Sorry. Let me show you some electronics. So this is another room lab. Here's where we actually have a 3D scanner, but we also have a couple electronics and devices. So some of our students built this 3D tracking system of a magnet. So this magnet, can you get close to see?
Yeah.
If you guys see that little blue sphere over there, as I move across this body, you actually track. It disappears here because this model has a belly and this one has a six-pack. So that's the only reason why it disappears. You can see that tracking in 3D space, pretty accurate. And within that volume, and it's made with very, very inexpensive electronics that you guys can buy, and that some of the same electronics that printers use. This is a good example of a medical device that we made. It's a, this is intended, this is an otoscope, so doctors use this to check your ears. And what we did was we redesigned this handle and we put electronics in them. We actually designed our own electronics board in this lab. And then we designed this handle to adapt to any otoscope and ophthalmoscope head. And what this does is allows you to do your examination, but also tracks data on proximity of the instrument to the patient, and then rotations and movements of the actual handle. So that's sort of a combination, because the handle was designed here and 3D printed here. So a lot of what we do is we print in-house, we design in-house, and then we do the electronics and we embed them in-house too. Okay, I got one more thing to show you guys. The 3D scanner. So this is the scanner that we use to get that face and that leg. So you just connect this, and we have another one connected, and you just move this around the person, and it just takes tons of pictures and then stitches them together and makes a 3D model out of them. It's pretty cool. It's pretty lightweight too, so.
Very neat. Is there any questions? Amanda, do you want to go through each of the classrooms?
Yeah, so if there's any questions, we can unmute the microphones. You can either use the raise your hand function that is inside of your control panel, or you can type in a question. I know Ms. Kinsley's class has been throwing us questions that have been really good, and so has Ms. Gerken's class. We really appreciate that. Ms. Castro, your class is still live and we can see you guys. Please let us know if you have any questions. Just raise your hand. Is that just a point of a finger or a raised hand? All right. Oh, what is the company's greatest weakness and strengths?
What is what?
Your greatest weakness and strengths of the lab.
So on the electronics part, we build electronics, but not all of us know how to build electronics really well. So like, it's definitely one of our weakness points. But in terms of design is probably our strongest part. Design and just quick prototyping. The electronics piece is definitely a work in progress. We do really well to get it to that first level, but then that board that I showed you there is definitely a one-time thing that we've done. We're trying to work to get that skill back in the lab. We rely a lot on students, so it's also very, like we have students that are amazing programmers, we have students that are amazing designers, and we like to have diversity of them, but when they graduate and leave, then slowly we lose the expert in something. So that's sort of the trade-off.
Awesome. Any of the other classes? There's a lot of you. If you're confused on where to go, so in the side of the control panel, you see the picture of the microphone, the webcam, and then right under it should be a little hand that you can click.
Or you could type in the questions.
Yes, in the question function right under where it talks about what you can see. All right, well, it looks like there's no more questions. Do you have any last thoughts?
To me, is that me?
Yeah, you. Yeah.
Again, what I was saying before, if you guys are excited about 3D printing, a lot of that information and knowledge is out there already. Design tools, anything from design to the actual printing, slicing process, and all that knowledge is now more than ever free and available. Like, you go online, even the CAD programs are now free. So that used to be a big obstacle, 5 to 10 years ago. So now it isn't. So take advantage of that. Don't wait for college to learn about this, because you can learn it now.
They asked, how long have you been working here?
In this lab, we started this lab about 3.5 years ago. so not that much. And then, but we were working within this type of, we were doing this type of work for 3 years before that. So I've only been working on this for 6 years.
If someone is interested in 3D printing, what do you suggest for them?
YouTube, seriously.
YouTube.
You know, like look up a lot of what we do, a lot of the decisions that we make on the hobby assistant is from like reading about it and seeing videos of people working those printers. You'd be surprised of the level of, you know, skills that you can gain and the knowledge that you can gain by just visiting these YouTubers that are doing 3D printing. And then of course there's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of like journal publication knowledge, and yeah, there's probably a book on 3D printing and additive manufacturing, but for the everyday person that's trying to learn and get their hands dirty, you can go to YouTube and skip all the jargon for a while.
All right. They're just asking again, where is the lab located and is it on college campus?
It's actually outside of the campus, so it's on the Research Parkway, which is still part of campus, but it's not, definitely not closer to the rings. It's outside, but it's within the Institute of Simulation and Training, 3039 Technology Parkway, Orlando, Florida, 32826. Right?
Yes, at UCF.
At UCF, yes. Sorry.
That's okay. Any others? Amanda, have you seen any?
Nope, I am not seeing any. I
Oh,
gotta.
They say thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us.
All right.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you everybody and for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the session. I know we didn't go quite 2 hours, but with no questions, we don't want to hold you up. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you so
sure.
much. We
You're welcome.
appreciate it.